And welcome to the Cedar Falls regular City Council meeting this December 3rd, 2018. I now call this meeting to order and ask for a roll call from Madam Clerk, please.
Miller.
Here.
DeBoer.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Blanford.
Here.
Dara. Here. Wieland.
Here.
Green.
Here.
All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the minutes. Item 1 is there a motion to approve the regular meeting November 19th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That carries. I will now take a couple minutes here to read the proclamation for the annual Teddy Bear Roundup. It reads in part, whereas the Ancient Order of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine was founded in 1872 by a group of 13 men belonging to the Masonic Order. It was originally established to provide fun and fellowship for its members. Whereas by 1900, over 80 shrine chapters had been established, the organization continued to grow and now has established a presence in the United States, Canada, Mexico, and Panama. Whereas best known for their circuses and colorful parades, the Shriners have always been involved in charitable efforts to provide free specialized pediatric health care, vowing in 1919 to establish a Shriners Hospital for crippled children. In the 1960s, burn hospitals were opened. In the 1980s, 3 spinal cord injury rehabilitation centers were opened. Presently, there are 22 Shriner hospitals in North America, 20 in the United States, and 1 each in Mexico and Canada. Whereas Shriners Hospitals for Children rely on the generosity of donors to help provide specialized pediatric care at no charge, conducting innovative research and providing world-class teaching programs for physicians and other healthcare professionals. Whereas December 14th has been designated as the 38th annual Cedar Valley Teddy Bear Roundup Day, I, Jim Brown, Mayor of the City of Cedar Falls, hereby urge citizens to donate a new bear for children at Shriners Hospitals and to educate themselves on the Shriners' generosity. Whereas new teddy bears can be dropped off between 5:30 and 10 p.m. on Friday, December 14th at the Cedar Falls AMVETS Post 49 here in Cedar Falls. I believe we have Jerry coming up to say a few words as usual. Great to have you, sir.
Well, I'm back again. I'd like to thank Mr. Mayor and the City Council and the great support of the Valley for their continued support that they have for the Teddy Bear Roundup. It was an announcement that I make that it was the biggest event that they had, the Shrine has ever had. We got 30 bags of teddy bears last year. They made more money than they ever made. They presented a check for, well, it's going to be quite a bit after expenses and all. But it's the reason for the Teddy Bear Roundup is for my twin brother who started it 20 years ago, who was crippled. And he wanted to give back to the Shriners for their help to for him to walk again. And my folks couldn't afford, and the Shrine paid for everything. And it's just a wonderful celebration. With Santa Claus will be there. We have live entertainment, and it's just a wonderful thing. And we have this year, Mrs. Beeman from the Beeman's Restaurant is going to make a cherry pie and a raisin cream pie, and we're going to auction it off. And all the proceeds from that will go to the Shrine. And I do thank the community for their great support. I'm sorry I wasn't there last year to accept the proclamation, but I was very ill, but I made it anyway. I come through like flying colors. I lost a lot of weight, but that did me good, you know. But I do thank everybody for their great support, and I invite everybody to attend it. And we have a luncheon, dinner at 5:30 to 6:30, and this year we're saluting the Italian. We're going to have Italian food. It's going to be real nice. It's catered by Roxanne Jensen, and a lot of work went into it. And I'd like to thank, special thanks to Teddy Bingle, who is co-chairman, who did a tremendous job, and her husband, Mark, if it wasn't for them, we couldn't have it. But they did a wonderful job, and I do want to special thank them and everybody that helped with it. So it's just a wonderful thing. And I invite everybody to come and see it. And just all you have to do is bring a teddy bear and enjoy the great evening. And Santa Claus will be there this year. So, and thanks again for your support.
Thank you, Jerry. We appreciate it. Moving on is new business consent calendar. The following items will be acted on by a voice vote in a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or the public requests an item to be polled for such discussion. Any such requests from council? From the public? I'll summarize the items here on the consent calendar. Item 2 is receive and file the report of the mayor relative to the appointment of Mayor Pro Tem and Chair of the Administration Committee for 2019. Item 3 is approve the following recommendations of the mayor relative to the appointment of members to boards and commissions. We have Board of Appeals, Electric Appeals, Mechanical and Plumbing Appeals. We also have Helen Pierce for the Housing Commission, Lindsay Peters for the Housing Commission, Don Timmerman for the Housing Commission, and Kyle Larson for P&Z. Thanks to those folks for serving the city. Item 4 is receive and file the committee of the whole minutes of November 19th. 5 is receive and file the City Council work session minutes of November 19th. 6 is receive and file departmental monthly reports of October 2018. 7 is receive and file a communication from the Civil Service Commission relative to a certified list for the position of Public Safety Officer. And 8 is approving applications for licenses. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Motion second. Any further discussion from council? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The next item is the resolution calendar. These items will be acted upon by a roll call vote in a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or the public requests an item to be polled for such discussion. Anyone from council?
Mr. Mayor, item 16.
Item 16. Anyone
Item
else?
20 and 25.
20 and 25. Anyone further from council? From the public? Hearing and seeing none, I'll summarize the resolution calendar minus those items. Item 9 is resolution approving and accepting a warranty deed and flood mitigation deed restriction in conjunction with the Northern Cedar Falls Flood Buyout Program. 10 is approving and authorizing execution of 11 leases relative to the property vacated by the flood buyout program. 11 is approving and authorizing execution of an agreement relative to umpiring services. 12 is authorizing execution of an agreement for organized crime drug enforcement task forces. 13 is approving and authorizing execution of purchase agreements, easements, grading easements in conjunction with the West First Street reconstruction project. 14 is approving the certificate of completion and accepting the work for the 2017 permeable alley project. 15 is approving and authorizing change order number 3 to the levee floodwall system improvements project. 17 is approving and authorizing execution of an easement agreement for a sanitary sewer connection. 18 and 19 are resolutions approving and authorizing execution of a stormwater maintenance and repair agreements relative to post-construction stormwater management plans. 21 is approving an overlay zoning district site plan at State Street. 22 is approving and authorizing execution of a proposal for asbestos removal in conjunction with the Northern Cedar Falls Flood Buyout Program. 23 is approving a plan for construction of a retail professional office building on Viking Road. And 24 is approving and authorizing execution of a development agreement relative to a commercial development on the southwest corner of Highway 58 and West Ridgeway Avenue. Is there a motion to approve those items minus those that were polled?
Second.
Move and second. Any further discussion from council? Requires a roll call vote, please.
A voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Circling back to 16, it reads a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a professional service agreement for the Lakeshore Storm Sewer Analysis. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion second. Open for discussion. Councilman Cruz?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to touch on the scope of service and clarify that it states existing storm sewer network, Lakeshore and Lilliput Lane. I'm assuming it comes down and covers into the actual creek and the damage that was done with the surface water eroding and repairs for that. Is that covered in that?
These drainage issues are really looking at Lakeshore and Lilliput, and we know we have a drainage concern at the intersection itself with a lot of water ponding. The improvements that are proposed in the development, we've shown that there will be an improvement with that, and so with the development, we won't have the same issues anymore with water flowing along the front of the dam. So this focus is actually on the intersection, and during certain large events, the intersection gets inundated with water, and so it's looking at see what we can do to make an improvement to that intersection, because now is the time to do it. We could potentially save some money by tying it to the other improvements that are going to happen at the same time.
Okay, so this, finish.
So this is really, it's a study to look at what we can do to get an idea, and then the costs associated with that, and then the next step would be actual design if we feel those costs are reasonable and we can make a significant improvement to the location.
Sure. Then are we going to handle with a separate scope of service contract to cover the damage below the dam that would have been from the surface water coming over this underdeveloped or undersized storm intake?
The erosion that has happened north of the toe of the dam, that's going to be handled by the developer. They've agreed to do some grading. So that's not part of this, it's part of the
Okay,
development.
didn't we have a discussion that there was some shared responsibility for having an undersized storm intake and water coming down and damaging the water exiting into the creek and helping city help repair that?
I don't, the development agreement itself,
No, there's no development agreement related to that. The improvements that we're looking at are related to the storm sewer in that area, checking to see if it's sized to help with the storm events that are happening in that area with the ponding of the intersection. However, the toe of the dam is not, we have information from the DNR that doesn't look like that's related to any overland flow. So that's not something that we're looking to include as a scope of this project.
Well, there's the toe of the dam right at the base, and then there's the spillway, if you want to call it that, if that's the right word, and then the exhaust or exit of the existing storm drain. And erosion in there, there's a pretty good ravine that's washed in from surface water coming down the street. And that would be contributory to having an undersized sewer. So I would think that that would be part of the scope of what
I believe what was found is that there was a little bit of a ravine happening on the Larry Hill side of the property where the development is occurring, and that ravine would be addressed through the development to be improved so that doesn't continue, and that channel is kind of repaired and mitigated.
Okay. So it'll cover the exhaust, the erosion at the exhaust, if that's the right term again, of the storm sewer coming out into the creek. That's going to be abandoned, but is it going to be repair work done there at the spillway area of the dam beyond the toe?
That's where the developer's planning to do some grading work to help with where that kind of erosion channel has occurred.
Okay, is there an assessment of the cost of that repair and what would be partially shared with the homeowners in that area and the developer? Is that anything done in that regard?
Their grading work would not be addressing areas where I think there's some concrete panels at the on the north side of the dam where the outlet of the dam is occurring. That erosion that's happened there is related to the dam itself and would be a responsibility of the homeowners association and however they have that set up to take care of that.
Okay, but further
it's
down,
to
there's
the dam.
additional damage because I walked through there and it's not just at the base of the dam by the toe and the spillway. There's other erosion there, and I was just curious.
yes, the other erosion, there is a pipe that runs under, is buried, and it outlets north of the outlet structure of the dam. There wasn't a lot of erosion, but then there's that channel that's developed from the overflow, and the developer is going to make those repairs as part of their project.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anything further, council? This requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 20 reads a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a change of work order number 3 to the contract relative to the 2018 street construction project. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Motion second, open for discussion.
This was about between $33,000 and $34,000 change order. I wondered, is this customary, or were there unexpected things here that created this?
I would have to say, with these projects, it's not unusual. It's often difficult to anticipate everything that we're going to find when we get into construction. There's different utility conflicts that happen that we're unable to anticipate, other construction issues that come up. So I wouldn't say this is unusual. It does happen. We do work hard to try to minimize these change orders, but there are things that just are very difficult to anticipate, and then we have to kind of adjust kind of on the fly for those challenges that we can come across.
So it wouldn't have been anything that would have been on the other competing bids when this was first let?
No, no, correct.
Thank you.
Anything further from council? Requires roll call vote, please.
I'm voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 25 reads resolution approving and authorizing execution of a professional service agreement relative to engineering services. Is there a motion, please?
Second.
Motion second, and open for discussion. Mr. Burr?
I was hoping for an explanation on the scope on this, and how many employees will we be getting, and will there be any conflict of interest with them working in our building on other projects?
The scope of the project is really going to range based on what we think we need. I've listed in the staff memo a couple of things that we think right off the bat that we'll end up working with the consultant on. For example, some of our CIP projects. We have drainage studies on our CIP that we wanted to get started, the Clay Street Park project design, some trail projects, that type of thing. We anticipate having one staff member from Snyder Engineering housed in city offices. It would run pretty similarly to how we ran things both last summer and this summer, with Foth having a staff person supporting us for University Avenue and using an office space there. So that it just really helped us coordinate a little bit better. It had somebody here if there were public questions that they could help that way, and just really helped with the oversight and coordination of the projects. Did you have another question?
How long, is this just one person that you get for this amount of money? And for how long?
The budget amount, the up to the $300,000 is based on budgeting 2 people for 40 hours a week for 6 months. We don't know if we will need that level of service or not, or if we might back off of that, but it would be to have one person in the office and one person outside of the office that might be primary and working on a lot of projects as well. But we're going to kind of see how it goes. We thought it would be better to identify a maximum versus simply an hourly rate, just so that council knew what we were trying to do, and we would go from there. When we have larger projects, we'll be bringing separate contracts to you on those. We have several CIP projects where, like the Cedar Heights project, the Parkade brick replacement, and downtown projects where we'll be bringing separate contracts on those.
Okay. So if you end up having any additional employees or hires, this amount, we would be able to cancel it at any time? It's not an automatic payment of $300,000 to Snyder?
Correct. It's, they will be giving us weekly progress reports, and by having somebody in the office, then we do know what they're working on, and we'll basically be contracting for what we need, and we can pull back on that if we've hired somebody and don't need all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further from council? Requires roll call vote, please.
I'm voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to item 26, is there a motion to approve bills and payroll?
So moved.
Motion second, requires a roll call vote, please.
I'm voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 27 is refer a request for preparation of a proposal and timeline for creation of a 5-year public safety strategic plan to be adopted no later than December 2nd, 2019. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been motion second. Open it up for discussion.
I'll start, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Councilman Green, I appreciate you bringing the referral to us. I think I have a number of questions or concerns about it, but the one that I guess primarily I wanted to be frank with you is a statement that you made when making the referral. I think it referenced some essence to that you received misinformation or untruthful information from both sides. To be quite honest with you, I find that very concerning. To accuse a democratically elected government body and its staff of providing false information is, in my mind, a pretty serious statement. And I guess I would urge you that if you think that has happened, to bring it before this council immediately. That is something that by far and beyond we need to address. It's not something that I think should be just flippantly thrown out there. It's incredibly important to me that this council and any governmental body is first and utmost one of integrity. And I guess that's my first concern. I really wanted to give you an opportunity to address that. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Anyone further from council? Mr. Boer?
Simply that we've been working on this plan for several years. About every council meeting, we have things on the agenda toward this model that we're working at. I don't think we need to go backwards and go back and per your request at this time, because we've already been working on it for so long and already passed so many different agenda items on this.
I did have staff look up since the beginning of the year, and there's been no less than 11 votes relating to public safety model for civil service and approval, as Mr. Boer indicated. Anyone further from council for discussion?
Just a quick comment. The 3 November meeting, I went over the strategic planning that was done for the POC model, and it started 7 years ago. I would encourage you, if you haven't watched that, to go to kwwl.com, fire, and you'll find that council meeting in its full content. The end of the meeting, the second part, is where I went over the strategic planning that was done for the POC program. I did mention that it was hidden underneath the budget reduction task force. And 7 years ago, we were faced with $1 million shortage the coming 5 years. And so we asked the citizens of Cedar Falls to come up with ideas. They came up with page after page of ideas. But go to that summary that I gave, and you'll see that we have followed what's called the strategic planning process as we implement the POC program. So it has been done and is being done. The only thing that's left on the POC program is to do the final hiring and close out the project and go over the actual cost savings by doing it. And that's yet in the future, maybe as much as 2 years out. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Whelan, anyone further?
I guess I may. Just for some background, I guess, for those of you out there that haven't seen all the social media posts and whatnot that have gone on, I guess for my take on this is we have goal setting every year. Every council person has an opportunity to bring forward what they want to see city staff push forward throughout the next year. The strategic plan was brought forth at goal setting this year. It did not have council support, in which case what staff does with that is that it's pretty well sits at that point because, number one, there isn't council support for it, and staff puts their yearly plan together based on what we decide are the key goals for the year in goal setting. So I guess I myself was a little bit frustrated to see a KWWL video of, number one, the implication that the city is misleading our citizens in this. I don't believe that to be true in any way, shape, or form. But as well, I think we all have the same opportunity to get the background info on this. And I think there was a statement made to the point that we can't get the information we need, which I don't have that problem myself. If we have questions, we can talk to any director, we can talk to any other staff person to get the information we need. So I find that a little confusing. My main point though, is that we have a process and a procedure for how these things are brought forward to keep it fair for everybody. All 7 of us have the same opportunity to bring something forward at goal setting. This was brought forward and not supported. As well, we've got a goals document that every department in this community or in this city brings forth their goals for us to consider at goal setting. Public Safety Department has one, Public Works has one, Refuse has one. Every department has a goals document. Those have been in place for years. As long as I've been on the council, those come forward every year. They're modified every year. So for myself, I don't favor doing anything else with this at this point. PSO program has been moving forward for 13 years, I believe now, And I'm comfortable moving forward with the documents that Public Safety Department has put forward already, and that's kind of where I sit with it.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Anyone further?
I guess I would just want to reinforce Mark's comment. And I do appreciate the concern about making sure when we initiate a model that we're monitoring its effectiveness, trusting that it's being implemented with integrity. And I believe the goals that Director Olson has put forth are measurable. I think it's built in that as we progress, if there is an issue that needs to be modified, that this is not etched in stone despite much of what I've read. It's a done deal. Implementing it is a done deal. But as far as what the end product looks like, things can change. But my biggest concern is that we all get behind it and it's implemented with full integrity, and there's not questioning of the intent or the ultimate end product. But I think it's already in place. I've said before, we don't need a 5-year plan. We've already been implementing it for 12 years. So, but I do want the public to have the assurance that we look at this. Jet's looking at it all the time when we're implementing stuff. If we need to tweak it, it gets tweaked. If something needs to change, it will be changed. We want quality safety services for the people in this community, and I think otherwise there's a big difference.
Thank you. Anything further from council? Mr. Blanford?
I guess I would just like to echo Councilman Miller and Councilman Dara in that out of that 2-day goal-setting session is a actual goal-setting document that's publicly available for everyone. Copies can be obtained at City Hall, and we go through it throughout the year. The public safety section, just in and of itself, just for Director Olson, has 36 goals on it, 15 references to monitor, review, examine. So we do have, to Councilman Miller's point, a process in place, not only to implement a project, but to monitor it and to maintain it and to continuously update it as needed. So that, in my mind, that information does already exist. It's available for everyone, and it's something that the 7 of us, that the mayor's office, that the directors look at continuously throughout the year to ensure that we are on track.
Mr. Green?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm really glad that these individual documents exist, and I think it's great for what Councilor Miller had talked about, this list of items that come through in the public safety admin document every year. What I'd really like to see is not a change to those items, but just a consolidation of those items into a single plan. And it's something that as we look at major changes, if we still have changes that are going to be occurring within the public safety model, I would just like to have that delineated. So I know it came out with some of the information either from KWWL or whatever that wanted to do a survey or a study, and that's not the case at all. I'm just looking for consolidation of something that's easily packageable to the public, not too unlike this kind of document, that we can then use as to say this is what the public safety model is, and this is what it's going to, what we approve moving forward. This is what we see it being in 5 years. So that's all I'm asking for.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone further?
If I may, to Councilman Green, I feel like that happens pretty regularly, where there's plenty of discussions on what the public safety model is. And I guess I'm a little confused. It's not enough, or I just don't understand it, because I feel like we have these discussions frequently. Director Olson's presentation at goal setting was very in-depth as to how this moves forward and what we're going to do with that. But is that was not enough? So I guess I don't. I guess that's I'm confused as to what we're looking for.
In some ways, it's how I see the role of council. We were asked in goal setting to say to agree to support the public safety model, that we support the aggressive expansion of the public safety officer model. And so I just don't believe that we're supposed to support a model. We direct that a model be developed. And so for me as a new council member to be asked to support a model, I want to make sure I understand what that model is in its entirety, and not something that just comes from small presentations, but that I can look at a document and say, this is what this represents for the next 5 years, and I do support this, or I don't support this.
Have you sat down with Director Olson to,
3 times,
have you?
I have. So this is not a new thing for me. Plus, with ride-alongs and participation in as much as I can with what's going on in public safety, this isn't coming from ignorance, I promise you.
Well, to me, it seems like if we're going to get into this any farther, then we're into micromanaging Chief Olson's department. And it's much the same for Public Works or any other department as they move to be as efficient as they can be. And then that isn't our role to get into the very specifics of how staffing happens or doesn't happen. And I get that this is kind of a hot topic. Everybody's concerned about safety. But I'm not interested in micromanaging that department. And I feel like if we start to get into this, then we aren't honoring the professionalism of each of these directors and their schooling and their knowledge and the research that they've done to effectively run a department. By no means do I want to, or I think a blank check was mentioned somewhere on social media, and that's not what I'm after. But as well, I think we can tiptoe too far into running their departments for them too.
Right, and I totally agree that it can be micromanagerial. I'd look at it as ideas, as it's hands-off until the yard signs go up, and then we should be involved. We should have more of a view. Difference of opinion.
I guess I do think it's unfortunate that we're at the point on the local level, and I think I've mentioned this a couple times, that facts are no longer facts. It is very unfortunate for us sitting around here and debating what a fact is and what a fact isn't, as far as how, I guess I've always admired local city government, because we can all look at each other and a fact is a fact. And it's unfortunate that we're at this point, and I hope we can move past this. Whether that happens tonight or not, I don't know, but I hope we can move past this and support this program and move on.
Thank you. Anything further from council? There's been a motion and a second for this referral. All in favor say aye.
Aye?
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
That does not carry for the vote. Next up is council updates. Director Olson, I think you had something relatively recent to update council with relating to public safety dispatch.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just wanted to give you a brief update. Annually, we review all calls for service type responses. It's a measurement of making sure we're responding to the calls that we need to, and in case there's any changes in what happens with police, fire, or medical type responses. And that's coming up at the end of the year. We just had a request from a fire supervisor to look at the medical calls in more depth. And the reason for that is because medical calls consist of 50% of what the fire department responds to. So we're going to take a look at that a little more depth in conjunction with all the other reviews that we do with our calls for service. Police do respond to some of those medical calls as well, but we're reviewing it for the response types, whether police or fire should be assisting Sartori, which, as you know, provides our ambulance. Sartori provides our paramedic rated ambulance service. But we'll also be including considerations for training, maybe a medical response type vehicle for fire as opposed to taking a big truck there, and also any tall call type changes we might be doing. So I just wanted to let you know that we're going to take a little bigger in-depth look into the medical side of things when we review all the calls that we respond to on an annual basis.
Right, thank you. Any other further updates from council? I had a quick update. There was no committee meeting this evening because myself and some staff and council attended the Black Hawk County Gaming Association event, where they actually have a pretty good time giving out grants from the Black Hawk County Gaming towards Cedar Falls, at least towards Cedar Falls efforts. One of the goals of the Gaming Association is to allow these grants, or to grant these grants, in order to help save taxpayer dollars in terms of different projects. So with the help of my assistants over here, we did get some pretty nice checks. Mr. Boer, that was for the public safety building in the sum of $750,000 from the Black Hawk County Gaming Association. Mr. Cruz, I think I gave you the pickleball complex for $50,000 that was given as a grant from the Blackhawk County Gaming. And then Mr. Blanford had the $50,000 for the CoLab space, which is a part of the expansion of the Cedar Falls Public Library. And then Mr. Dara had, which one was that? Yeah, I got to see it, Frank. $30,000, sorry, thanks for the sanitary sewer. So we also had a final one that we didn't collect for, which was the Place to Play playground at Hudson Road in Green Hill, which is a tremendous, Mark, how much was that one for? $250,000, along with the other generous folks that we've mentioned here at council before. So just a great effort, and it's a really nice event that we were able to attend. Item 28 is to go to executive session to discuss property acquisition per Iowa Code, Section 2151J, to discuss the purchase or sale of particular real estate following public forum. Is there a motion, please?
So move.
Motion second requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 28, the next item is public forum. Speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics germane to city business. Is anyone here from the public that would like to speak tonight? Yes, ma'am. If you would please to state your name and address.
Most of you know who I am already, but I will say it again. I'm Jenny Van Doren. My husband was a firefighter for over 25 years, and so I'm speaking on behalf of myself and concerned citizens. On October 31st, I went to a Civil Service Commission meeting. Item 6 on the agenda was dealing with approving candidates to be tested for public safety officers. 30 put in applications, of which 22 were approved to take a written and a physical agility testing. If these candidates pass both tests, they could be hired upon available openings. There were 8 that passed the possibility of those 8 are going to be hired. Also, why has the certified list for promotion of firefighters being ignored? I was told when I called the police station that there were 60 police officers, but Officer Birdie called me and said there were only 51. He said 35 are trained PSOs and 7 more were to start their PSO training. There are 21 firefighters, which include the chief and a fire inspector. That leaves 19 career firefighters to be divided between 3 shifts, who are scheduled to work shifts of 24 hours for 10.1 days a month. It was stated in the flyer they worked under 8 days a month. That must be the figure that includes all the fire department's vacation days. I went to college to be trained as a teacher. The people who are in the fire department trained to be career firefighters and to be led through their career by experienced firefighters. Maybe. I assume the police officers went someplace to be trained to be police officers and not firefighters. But those that are being hired now in Cedar Falls, they have to agree to be a police officer and a firefighter. I hope you all read Stan Smith's comments in the Sunday Courier. He made some very correct statements. How is having another layer of government, a public safety director, saving any money? How has equipping 42 police officers with fire clothing, CAF gear in their cars, and 11% more pay, saving money? Oh, did you take up the offer of the Vice President of the National Firefighters Union to help solve this situation? And as Councilman Green asked about the 5-year plan, I guess I'm going to have to come down and find this plan that you have been doing for several months. So I hope you start thinking about your decisions. All I know is that when the substitute teacher comes in, they have the training, but they don't always follow the way the teacher says. And it could be very crucial for a firefighter, a PSO, who doesn't follow all the rules too. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms.
And hopefully, someday, I'll get my point across.
Points well taken, thank you. Anything from council from the previous speaker? Mr. Biner?
All right, Chief Olson, can you just touch briefly on the testing requirements for all of our public safety positions, and as well as the subsequent training?
Certainly. So the process starts out, first of all, the Civil Service Commission monitors the entire process. So we start out with an application process, and you know, we see that they meet the job classifications. They're required to take a written test, a physical agility test. Then they go through a short interview before they pass on to the next step. And the civil service then authorizes them to continue through the process. Once they get through that process, then we narrow it down a little bit further with a more formal interview process, and then we whittle it down to a certain number of people that we would like to see on that list. The civil service approves that list, and then the city council also, I guess, adopts and files that same list. We're allowed to hire from that list until that list is exhausted, or for 1 year. Once we choose to hire someone from that list, they're given a conditional offer, and that conditional offer is consists of a polygraph, which is a lie detector test. It's an MMPI, which is a personality inventory, which tends to tell you if they have any psychological issues. They go through a physical as well, and then at that point, if they reach that hurdle, then they're brought on board. Once they're brought on board, they need to attend the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy, which is a 16-week academy. Then we have a 14-week field training program for the police side. Then at some point, they'll need to attend a fire class, which we typically put on with our own firefighters, and it's typically about 3-4 weeks. Then they're required to take a written test, which consists of a firefighter 1 and 2 hazmat tests, written tests. Then they're required to do a skills test for the state. And then we also have a 44-page skills manual that they run through as the fire department, or our fire department, and they're checked off. And once they've achieved all that, then they're able to carry their gear in their car and function as a firefighter as well. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to briefly talk about some of the physical tests that we hear a little bit about. So we use what's called, it's one of the Cooper tests. Cooper is a nationally recognized firm, I guess, that has had court challenges, a very credible organization that sets testing standards for all sorts of different positions. The military uses a Cooper test, and the military uses that for all their positions, which includes their firefighter positions. You commonly hear the term CPAT, which is a fire fitness test. Waterloo does not use that. They use one that they put together themselves that's modified. Ames got away from that because they were afraid of some discriminatory issues. The city of New York has also considered changing that. They have hired people recently that have failed the Cooper test, but they say it is just one of many tests, and if overall they're doing well, they'll bring them on board. Less than 25% of the full-time fire departments in the country use the Cooper test. If you include volunteer services in there, it's less than 5. So there's many, many different types of tests that people use in the fire industry. So we chose to use the Cooper test, which we think is a validated, court-challenged testing fitness test.
Thank you.
Anything further? That's another hand, gentlemen. Yes, please come on up. State your name and address for me, please.
Hello, I'm Richard Hines. I'm kind of concerned about why our fire station out in North Cedar is not up and operating. Dave talked about here several years ago, they had shortfall of money and stuff. But I mean, I see now all these new housing projects going up west of town, south of town, and commercial businesses. Why aren't we getting the tax money off that to fund our fire departments and our firemen and stuff and hire the people that properly can do that. I mean, we got a nice fire station out there that's sitting idle. And I also think, that, you know, all these new developments out there west of town, they should also have a fire station out there with the South, Main Street, North Cedar, and then at least you're covering the whole area of Cedar Falls with, you know, trained firemen. I don't have no problem with the PSOs, you know, helping the firemen, but, you know, I just like to know why we can't get our fire station up and operating, because, I mean, we drawed up a petition out there, and I have never heard anything back on it. So that's what I'd just like to know, what we're gonna do with that. You know, just,
You bet.
because you really look at, we got 2 railroad tracks, and if there's trains on both tracks, and they're coming from the Main Street Fire Station, and there's trains on their track, they might be 20 minutes before they can get out to our place and put out a fire or whatever. So I want you guys to really consider that and stuff. So
Thank you, Mr. Hines.
we
Appreciate
need to open back up. So thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Again, I'll open up to council. Any questions for the speaker? Anyone further? Yes, please. Name and address, please.
Tammy Stahl, 1009 Lakeshore Drive. I'm here to talk to you again about the water drainage system. I believe you approved funds today to do a further study. I've been reading through the state drainage manual, and along the process of everything I've dealt with, I'm aware of the fact that our city streets are part of the drainage system, but over and over it talks about the upstream water flow having the right to come downstream or flow down in a reasonable manner. And I want to suggest to you that the water that's coming down our street that has created a new flow bed, has made a 50-foot-long ravine that is about 11 feet wide and 11 feet deep, is not a little erosion. And water that will come down and make damage like that, that also will break concrete and bend steel, is not reasonable. And this water that's come down and done this, it destroyed our skirt on our dam, which was made of the concrete and steel. And the developer that's going in is replacing this concrete and steel with temporary riprap. And it needs to be repaired properly. And I'm just really saddened, concerned, and frankly afraid, seriously afraid, of my city officials that say that I'm a private citizen and don't have the right to, that my city has the right to do this, to create that kind of damage, and to not offer any help or support in repairing this damage. You say that the DNR has given you proof that that the water flow did not damage the skirt to our dam. We've hired a professional that said otherwise. What they call this is the water coming through one way stops the flow of the water coming out of the dam, and it pushes it back in, and it creates what's called tuck pointing. It makes the water swirl and create this damage. And if you need to have the letter from our professional consultant that has done water drainage assessments around the world, we're happy to have him talk with you. But I think more than anything, they're talking about moving where the water will come out after the changes are made will be far enough away not to harm it, the dam, the way it is being harmed now. But if you think that there's just a little erosion, then it just is proof that pictures do not tell a whole story. Anybody that's come out and looked at the damage that has happened to our property or what we're charged with maintaining can see that it's not just a little bit of damage. And I have tried, since there was the slightest hint that there was a problem going on, to notify the city so that we could work together to mitigate this, to try to minimize or take care of this problem. And I've been told that as a private citizen, I have no rights, and that the city intended to not participate in any way and left us helpless. We couldn't move the drain. We couldn't do anything. It left us helpless in taking care of this problem until now, and we're grateful for the changes that are taking place. But to say that the damage did not happen because of the water coming in, not over the dam, but behind the dam, is completely inaccurate. And I would hope that you would reconsider. In the city manual, it says that the city is just like a citizen and has the same rights, even more so, that you're supposed to be more conscientious than another citizen would be on harming a person's property. And I just hope that you will reconsider helping with putting our dam back the way that it was before the damage happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stahl. Anything further from council? Previous speaker?
Mayor.
Cruz?
Ms. Stahl spoke on the point I was trying to make earlier, that there is the spillway, toe of the dam issue, and then we have this tuck pointing issue that's been described by a professional water engineer that's got multiple years of experience. And I think if we're going to do a stormwater assessment or some sort of service agreement, that it needs to look at this damage that has been contributed by the undersized storm sewers on Lilyport coming down to Lake Shore Drive there. And the city participated in that with the developer fixing this.
You can certainly bring it up referral.
Sorry?
Next, you can bring up a referral if that's going to expand the scope of the contract. Is that what would happen in essence?
Yes.
Mayor, we can handle this a couple different ways. One, you can refer it and discuss it further, or as John said, the city engineer, what they're looking at now is they're actually looking at a study to determine what are some of the solutions. When they actually come back with the plans that will say what those improvements are, and they go out to bid and all of those, that's the time that we would include some of those improvements that are actually in there, in coordination with the developer and the grading and all of those things. So yes, it will be addressed, and there will be some work.
Because tonight was for the analysis, in essence.
That's correct.
Someone to bring in to find out.
Yep, to have the consultant look at it. And it's the same consultant that actually did the design work for the entire development. So it's not kind of a disjointed effort. It's the same person looking at all of it.
Anyone further public comment? With that, we will now adjourn to executive session.